I mean, 2 Kings 1.
Yeah.
We already did 1 Kings. We finished it. Moab rebels against Israel after the death of Ahab. Now, Hazael fell from the lattice of his upper room in Samaria and was injured. So he sent a messenger saying, "Go inquire on Bazalah, the god of Ekron, whether I should recover from my injury." So here he is. What's he doing? He fell through the lattice. And guess what? He says, I need to call on a God. And what does he do? He calls on the wrong God, doesn't he? Because he says, go and inquire about Beelzebub, the god of Ekron. So he's following his father's footsteps, isn't he? He's back in the old ways. He forgot about the Lord, didn't he? So let's keep going on here. But the angel of the Lord said to Elijah, the Tishbite, "Arise, go up and meet the messenger of the king of Samaria, and say to them, is it because there is no God in Israel that you are going to inquire of Baal, the god of Ekron?" So the angel appears to Elijah, doesn't he? And what's he say? He said, go up to the king and say, is there no God in Israel? So he's saying, Elijah, you're supposed to be praying to the right God. Here you are, you're going to Baal, the god of Ekron. Why? So he's going to say, but remember, we haven't heard anything about Elijah for a while, have we? Nobody has. Then in verse 4 it says, now therefore thus says the Lord, you shall not come down from the bed to which you have gone up to, but you shall surely die, says Elijah, departed. And when the messenger returned to him, he said to them, why have you come back? So they said to him, a man came up to meet us, and he said to us, go return to the king who sent you and say to him, thus says the Lord, it is because there is no God of Israel that you are sending to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron. Therefore you shall not come down from the bed to which you have gone up, but you shall surely die. Then he said to him, what kind of man was it who came up to meet you and told you the word? They answered, a hairy man wearing a leather belt around his waist, and he said, is it Elijah the Tishbite? So wait a minute here. These guys didn't know who the guy was, did they?
No.
All they knew, he was a hairy man wearing a leather belt around his waist. So it had to be a long time since they've seen him, hasn't it? He hasn't been around. So these new guys they have, they don't even know who he is. And then in verse 8 he says, so they answered him, verse 9. Then the king said to him, the captain of 50, with his 50 men. So he went up to him, and there he was, sitting on top of the hill. And he spoke to him, men of God, the king has said, come down. So Elijah answered and said to the captain of 50, if I am a man of God, then let fire come down to heaven and consume you and your 50 men. And the fire came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50 men. We remember, what did Elijah do last time somebody said they were going to come attack him? When Jezebel said she was going to go attack him, what did he do? He went in, didn't he?
Yeah.
He ran. So he had to learn something from this. He's learned that God is going to protect him. Because when God told him to go do this time, he didn't run. He just went up the mountain and waited. He's learned that God will provide for him. He learned that he don't have to be scared. And then in verse 11, then he sent him another captain of 50 with 50 men. And he answered and said to him, man of God, does the king come down quickly? And Elijah answered them and said to them, if you have a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50 men. And the fire of God came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50 men. So here he goes, he calls down fire from heaven again. You know, remember, this is the third time he's done that because he did it whenever he was at Mount Carmel. And God listens, God told him to do it. And then in verse 13, again, he started the third captain of 50 with his 50 men. And the third captain of 50 went up and came and fell at his feet, fell on his knees before Elijah and pleaded with him. And he said to him, man of God, please let my life and the life of my 50 servants of yours be precious in your sight. Look, fire has come down from heaven and burned up first 2 captains of 50 and their 50. But let my life now be precious in your sight. And the angel of the Lord said to Elijah, go down with him, do not be afraid of him. So he arose and went down with him to the king. So what did these guys do? The third set that came by, they realized that his God was great, didn't they? And they're like, they sit there and they bow down to their knees and they say, please spare us. They didn't want the same fate as the other guys, did they? They realized what was going on. But then, like he said, then an angel came down and told Elijah to go down with them, didn't he? So he was told to go down with them to go see the king. And in verse 16 it said, then he said to him, thus says the Lord, because you have sent messengers to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, is it because there is no God in Israel to inquire of his word? Therefore you shall not come down from the bed which you have gone up, but you shall surely die. So Asa died according to the word of the Lord, which Elijah had spoken. Because he had no sons, Jeremiah became king in his place in the 2nd year of Jeroboam, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. Now the rest of the acts of Ezra, which he did, are now written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. So we can learn from this big thing. You know, we need to make sure we're inquiring from the first right God, aren't we? Because what did this king do? He went and inquired. He knew he needed a God to save him, but he went and inquired against the wrong one. How many times has that happened in our world now? It's going on all the time, isn't it? You have a lot of different religions and that. People are bound down to the wrong things, aren't they? And then, you know, when we're told to go do something, we need to go do it. It took Elijah a long time to learn this. But each one of us, it might take us quite a few times, but we need to learn to do the same thing. We know we can rely on the Lord. When he goes and tells us to do something, we need to get up and go do it. We need to go do what he tells us. And Elijah showed here, when he did it this time, he was safe, wasn't he? God kept him safe. So we all need to learn through these kings. These are things we need to do in our life. Let's go to prayer.